I don't know if the Conservatives are angry because they can't read or because they're get told what to say in this place.
It's one after the other. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we're finding out one of Canada's biggest AI companies may be getting taken over. Will they move out of Canada? We also got the CBC turning on Carney, being critical of him, which is pretty rare here. We got a bunch of other stuff. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off, we got some polling data here. This is federal data coming from Beaches, East York, which is Nate Erskine-Smith's riding. So sitting at 40% for the Liberals. And if Abby Lewis were to run 31%, this is his only opportunity basically to get into the House of Commons for the next 3 years. So I don't know if he's going to take it or not. It wouldn't look that good if he lost this, but then it wouldn't look that good with him not in the House of Commons. Moving ahead, we've got Canada Revenue Agency spent $202,000 to conduct a survey asking taxpayers how they like paying taxes. Yeah, what a waste of money. They concluded that tax filing was seen as a necessary responsibility rather than an activity Canadians look forward to. Oh wow, really? Amazing. 200 grand to figure that out. We got this one here. Just in, China offers to take Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium as part of an agreement to end the war. Yeah, I'm sure they want to take that. Of course they do. Moving ahead, we've got this bombshell here, posted by conservative Raquel Dancho. Cohere, a Canadian AI company, received $240 million in taxpayer funding. Much of it reportedly went to a data center built and operated by a U.S. firm. Now Cohere is reportedly in talks to merge with a German company. This is the kind of stuff you get from the Liberals. They're fine to do business with America if it benefits Mark Carney's net zero agenda. Otherwise, it's elbows up and watching Canadian jobs vanish.
With my remaining time, I did want to just get one more question in. There was, of course, talks in the Globe and Mail recently about a potential merger between Cohere and a German-owned company. And of course, as I mentioned, Cohere received about $250 million, just under, to build our sovereign capacity. So we have some concerns. There was not a lot of details in the article, and I'm sure you can't comment on specifics, but could you commit for this committee today that Cohere will remain Canadian-owned and headquartered in Canada?
Yeah, as you suspect, I'm not going to dive into speculation. What I can certainly assure you is Cohere was built in Canada. The founders are Canadian. We have growing teams in Canada. We just opened a team in Montreal, an office that I'm growing myself. And so I am fully confident that Canada will continue to be the home for a lot of the work that Cohere is doing.
Oh, okay, but you can't commit that you'll remain Canadian-owned and Canadian headquartered, but that you would have a presence here regardless of any merger.
It's not my role to comment on this.
If they do get sold off to Germany, well, then we should get our money back. I mean, really, they need to write this stuff into the contracts. This is not rocket science. This all started back in December 6, 2024. And since then, we've got, well, this article here on the Walrus. Cohere is Canada's biggest AI hope. Why is it so American? With more than 400 employees and valued at $6.8 billion, Cohere is one of Canada's leading artificial intelligence companies. At first glance, it seems perfectly poised to fulfill federal government's goals of keeping up with the global AI race and achieving tech sovereignty from the United States. Unlike its competitors, OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, Cohere doesn't offer a flagship consumer chatbot like ChatGPT. Instead, it builds large language models and AI programs for businesses and governments. So that's their angle on this. And it says down here, Cohere will repeatedly use the funding to partner with CoreWeave, a US AI infrastructure company, to build the data center. CoreWeave is a popular choice for US companies, including OpenAI and Microsoft, as it provides the much needed data processing for AI to work. So we're helping funding this American company, but then Mark Carney's like, elbows up, America's evil, not doing any deal with Donald Trump, but it's perfectly fine if it helps his agenda. Now, to be clear here, this was back in 2024, so Trudeau would have been the one that signed the papers here, but I mean, Mark Carney was telling Trudeau what to do back then. There's no question. We could see all the moves coming out, they all align with Brookfield. And we can see here, as Raquel mentioned, Cohere reportedly in talks to merge with German firm Alpha. If this goes forward and then when they move the company out of here or whatever, I mean, we should get our money back. The government is so awful. They don't write stuff into contracts. They don't protect Canadians. They just waste our money on anything and everything. And they keep doing this over and over. Eventually, the people have to wake up to this stuff. This story is like a layered onion here. It says Ottawa signs agreement with Canadian AI startup. Well, this is in August 19th, 2025. So while Trudeau was initially the one to put forward the money, it's actually Carney who made this company the centerpiece of their AI plan going forward. You can see he signed an MOU between between Cohere and Ottawa in the middle of last year. It says here there's no better place to leverage innovative technology, artificial intelligence in our own backyard, yada, yada. I mean, Carney needs this for his net zero agenda. Brookfield is a world leader in AI too. It's very interesting they picked this company to be the centerpiece of their sovereign AI framework for the government. And this just goes to show that Carney was whispering in Trudeau's ear to put that money up front, and then he can come in and sign this into order to essentially bring this into the government. Now, the question is, does this get sold off to Germany? Do they move jobs out of here? I mean, who knows? Do they move them down to America? Moving ahead, we've got this one from the Prime Minister of Canada account. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the first ever Canada Investment Summit that will take place in Toronto from September 14th to 15th, with a focus on attracting new investment to advance nation-building projects and create new career opportunities for Canadians. Basically, they're going to blow a couple $100,000 over a weekend eating caviar and drinking wine and achieve nothing. We've got Melissa with this one. New Brunswick judge reduces man's sentence so he won't get deported from Canada. Yeah, this was April 11th, 2026, 10 days after he was charged with assaulting his former partner. Police charged Adebole Adekola with disobeying a no-contact court order. Welcome to Canada. Moving ahead, we've got Candace Malcolm posting this. Nearly 80% of BC is locked into active Aboriginal land grab battles. That's because we don't have major treaties across British Columbia, and this has turned into a complete crap show. Nearly all British Columbians are tied up in competing Indigenous land claims, with just 5% of the province covered by settled treaties. This will be the next topic of the election because nobody wants to work their whole life and then get it taken away. Moving ahead, look at this nonsense. Ontario mistakenly released 157 inmates. Oopsies, how did that happen?
Hello, Minister.
Good day, sir.
Minister Kersey, how are you?
Solicitor General Michael Kersner facing the fire, not exactly playing games like Monopoly, but acknowledging that more than 150 inmates essentially got out of the province's jails and prisons for free.
You have to remember something, that we have many people moving in and out of our correctional system every day. There's a judicial system, there's an administrative system. I'm not satisfied that one person is released improperly.
Yeah, 157. Everything is broken in this country. This is between 2021 and 2025. The complete crap show. Speaking of crap show, we've got this one here. Marilyn Gladu caught in potential criminal bribery scandal. This is in regards to Marilyn Gladu saying that she's getting something out of it, talking about how her riding is now getting money, all this kind of stuff, where basically this goes against Section 119 of the Criminal Code here, bribery of judicial officers and others, including members of parliament. So interesting to see if this goes anywhere, because she basically openly admitted that it was good for her to cross the floor and she's getting something out of it. We know full well all these politicians, they're not just doing it because they're inspired by Mark Carney. They're getting something out of it. Moving ahead, we've got man charged in 22 million gold heist from Toronto Pearson Airport has been sentenced to 4 years and given 40 years to pay back 22 million in restitution. What happened to the gold? And we got this comment down here talking about politicians pay restitution for billions they send in foreign aid. Yeah, we should be doing that too. Moving ahead, we've got a rare moment here where we've got Andrew Coyne on the CBC dropping a truth bomb. This doesn't happen very often.
Andrew, the fact is, as Catherine points out, that this majority was secured, let's be honest, primarily through the 5 floor crossers, and these 2 by-elections are sort of what clinched them, pushed them over the edge. Is there any question there, not around the actual legitimacy of the majority, but how that looks to Canadians, and whether there is any discomfort with the way this majority has come about, or is the Prime Minister simply too popular and so it doesn't really matter to voters?
I think it ought to be disquieting to people because we don't really know what their motives were. If it was just because they were afraid of losing their seats, that's venal, but it's understandable. But were they offered something? Were they offered jobs? We don't know.
When you think of Marilyn Gladu, she has a rock-solid conservative riding, so this is not about losing a seat. She wasn't going to lose that seat.
We had the other possible motive put forward by Marilyn Gladu, who said, well, she'd noticed that government ridings tended to get more government spending than opposition ridings. Well, if that's the argument, then why should anybody be in the opposition? And we feed this, I think, we in the media, when we talk about, oh, these poor opposition members, they don't want to sit in opposition for 3 long years. Opposition members actually do useful work. They're holding the government to account. They're exposing government wrongdoing. They're making ministers answer for their portfolios. Government side MPs, their basic job, whichever party's in power, is just to wave things through. It's to be a voting machine. So let's not devalue the role and importance of opposition MPs in our system of government. And this sort of thing beyond, of course, betraying the trust of the people who voted for these MPs to represent a particular party, it just calls into the whole system. It makes it to some degree of disrepute.
Wow. A rare win here from Andrew Coyne, and he's 100% right. What are these people getting for crossing the floor? As I mentioned, Marilyn Gladue, safe riding. She had no reason to cross. Yeah, someone screenshotting Althea here. She didn't like what Coyne had to say there about members in government just waving stuff through. After 12 years in power, the Liberal Party of Canada finally has fair chance to implement their vision of governments for Canada. Yeah, let's see what really happened. This is the first time we've had a majority, I believe, in 6 years. What will Carney do? We already know it's a net zero agenda. Moving ahead, the Liberals continuing to push this idea of joining the EU. Did Canadians forget about the election and us being sovereign once again? So they have a panel here on CBC talking about this.
At issue, Canada and the European Union. In an interview this week, Finland's president, Alexander Stubb, discussed Canada joining the EU.
I think Canada, in terms of its hold, composure, its value base, is so close to the European Union that the least we can do is to forge a really close strategic partnership. I can envisage a much larger EU. Whether Canada is a part of it or not, it's up to Canada to decide.
So is that even possible? Would it benefit Canadians in any way? Here to break it down, Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. So yes, I am using my own interview to make you guys talk about this, but the President Stubb, is sort of in favor of this, even though it's legally not possible. And I don't know if it's something that should be talked about in a more serious way, Andrew, and what you make of the notion.
Well, it's legally possible if the European Union members decide to make it possible.
Sure.
I mean, you'd have to creatively construct the clause in the Treaty of European Union that it's only for European states. But if they all want to do that, and it would have to be all of them, they can. I think that's highly unlikely. I'm not at all sure why anybody in this country should want that. Mm-hmm. Close strategic partnerships, fine.
Yeah.
Free trade treaty, we have that with them already. So we've already got access to the European market. But membership in the European Union means you take a good section of your sovereignty and give it over to Brussels. Across a wide swath of jurisdictions, laws would be made by the European Parliament. They would be construed by the European courts. It's an extraordinary sacrifice of independence. And if the rationale for it is supposed to be we're trying to protect ourselves from losing our independence to the United States, it's a better trade, I suppose. If you have to have an imperial overlord, I'd rather it was Europe than the States. But it's an unnecessary trade. We can establish our independence in the United States without having to fall into the arms of Europe.
So I agree with most of what he says there, aside from I would rather be part of America versus the EU, but we don't need to be part of either. As he mentioned, we have Brussels making decisions for us. So we're not even connected to that landmass. This is the dumbest idea that liberals have been pushing probably since Carney's got in, even maybe in the last 10 years. This is one of the dumbest.
I agree with Andrew. I would also flag that I think it would be nearly impossible to get the provinces to agree to do this. I will also flag that, there was a debate on this at the NDP convention. Delegates vehemently voted against this. The Conservative delegates have also weighed in on this. They don't agree. I haven't seen any polling, but I don't know why the Liberals would want to keep floating this idea, which they have. But I don't know that there is appetite to take on, debt that belongs to others.
Well, same here. I'm not convinced. And the fact that there is not at this point a serious person that is overtly promoting this, and the government kind of tells you all you need to know. But Andrew's point is well taken. Why would you trade less dependence on the U.S. to tie yourself to the EU's rules?
Well,
it just sounds like a major waste of energy that does not necessarily make a beneficial arrangement with the EU and more partnerships with the EU any better. So I really don't see it.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a rare, do we say win on the CBC where they all agree this is a dumb idea? Kind of shocking, but really there's no reason to be doing this. I mean, is Carney trying to flare up the separatist movement in Alberta? This is contrary to what we just heard about him wanting to use the Emergencies Act to shut it down if it goes forward. So I don't really know what's going on here. It's like utter chaos. And maybe that's the plan, is just complete chaos. And then they can slide all this stuff through, conflicts of interest and all sorts of corruption and scandals, enrich themselves. So we're not paying attention to this stuff over here. We're looking over here. Is that what they're doing? Yeah, this is the dumbest idea probably of the last decade.
I should say that President Stubb is probably the European leader who talks about it in the most positive terms. I'm not sure that anyone else is. And to your point, Andrew, the Prime Minister is trying to make that relationship stronger and find security alliances and things like that.
Oh, yeah. We've got to be very creative in thinking afresh, for example, about NATO. If NATO's not going to be the same organization it was, we can be looking at trade and defense types of partnerships that are unusual, but the unusual does not mean, delusional.
Eurovision Song Contest wouldn't be the defining factor. Okay, thank you.
Unusual does not mean delusional. Andrew Coyne has had a few rare wins recently because this is beyond delusional. And if there was comments here that were available on CBC's YouTube channel, they didn't block them, then you would see them here as well. Jumping over to the House of Commons, have quite the spicy back and forth here. Adam Vancouverden running his mouth as usual.
74% of Canadians report that rising gas and food prices are killing their household budgets. While the Liberals claim they care about affordability, food banks are literally removing meat from their shelves because it's too expensive to stock. Now, add the fuel surcharges being introduced by some food suppliers on deliveries to grocery stores. Does the Prime Minister truly believe that his temporary 10-cent per litre reduction, which expires after Labor Day, will fix the supply chain crushed by his industrial carbon tax and now rising fuel prices?
Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's what the Conservatives don't say in their prepared speeches that is written by the Conservative leader, that Canadians really...
You think Pierre Poilievre is writing everyone's remarks here in the House of Commons as if he has time to do that?
Really need to know is how they plan to pay for these outlandish and irresponsible proposals, Mr. Speaker.
What? Carney's doubling the deficit. Outlandish proposals. We're talking cutting the extra profits the government's making off of the GST of the fuel prices. Meanwhile, how does he justify Carney's outrageous spending?
You can question the economic acumen of one of the most world-renowned economists if they like, but what Canadians know is that Liberals are delivering on affordable childcare and dental care, and our government is meeting the moment with...
One of the world-renowned economists, Mark Carney. Okay.
How much time is left? How much time is left?
So I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but there's a lot of outrage. I mean, Vancouverden made a whole bunch of statements there, childcare, dental care, all of it.
The honourable member, order please, order. The honourable member has 7 seconds left.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if the Conservatives are angry because they can't read or because they're told what to say in this place. Either way, we've got Canadians' backs.
Yeah, no wonder Carney keeps him around. He's just as arrogant as Carney.
The honourable member for Chatham-Kent Leamington.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals are going to have to pick a lane. On the one hand, they literally claim that a hidden industrial carbon tax buried in the food supply chain doesn't affect the price of groceries. But on the other hand, they offer temporary half measures of relief for Canadians from rising fuel prices, acknowledging that the hidden costs, the excise taxes and fuel prices, and are still pocketing the higher tax revenues generated from those same rising fuel prices. Why did they vote against our plan to remove all fuel taxes for the entire year?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. The hidden cost is exactly what the Conservatives are hiding from Canadians. What are they going to cut to pay for their irresponsible suggestions? They're going to...
The hidden costs that Conservatives are hiding. They're not in government, Vancouverden. Does he not know how this works?
Childcare. They're going to cut dental care. They're not going to do a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, and they're certainly not going to do a groceries and essentials benefit. How do we know? Because they voted against every single affordability proposal the government's put on the table for them to vote for. Mr. Speaker, they can question the economic acumen of a world-renowned economist if they like, but Canadians can see right through this bluster. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, world-renowned economist is tanking our economy. Jumping out of the house here, we've got breaking. Durham police search for evidence after a home invasion in Ajax, Ontario, where it appears the homeowner was ended and suspects have fled the scene. That's right, we've got home invaders ending Canadians' lives. You got to be prepared. These people come in, you take them out. That's it. There's no questions. There's no asking them what level of force they're using. You just end them. That's it. But legal pew-pew owners are the problem. Yeah. Burglars have pew-pews and machetes, and you're fumbling with a short-range, travel-size pepper spray to figure out which way the nozzle is pointing.